Well guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a talking head in a van. And this week, we're going to be talking about money. And we're going to look at our 2024 travel budget, life budget, basically what we spent in 2024 living in full-time in a van, mostly in mainland Europe. So yes, welcome to the Gallops in Newmarket. Suitably called the Gallops because this is where they bring the horses to gallop. Now, first up, apologies if you hear some car noise going past. This is a relatively busy stretch of road. I think a lot of people do like coming up here and looking at the horses. Maybe they're looking for an inside tip. I was hoping it was going to be better conditions because this is a beautiful place. Early morning mist, sort of the breath from the horses adding to the atmosphere. Sadly, however, since we arrived in Cambridge, it's been nothing but grey. 50 shades of grey without the shenanigans, if you know what I mean. We have been pretty much base locked, home locked, landlocked, whatever the heck you want to call it, for the last couple of months in Ireland for various reasons that we may or may not get into. Obviously, some of those reasons van related, some of them health related. Now here in Cambridge, we are once again landlocked, house locked, home locked. And our plans have had to change a little bit again, which means that we're probably going to be locked here for a little bit longer than we had hoped. Getting a little bit frustrated, not least whenever we watch Ben Fogel's Lives in the Wild. Now, we missed all of the ones from last year. They were all started January 2024, which is when we headed out on our second year. So it's been really good catching up on those, including one chap, I think his name was Paul, who lived in a massive big truck in Yorkshire. But yeah, it's been lovely to watch that, but also quite frustrating that we are housebound. Oh, bit of a pain. And of course, being sort of housebound and landlocked means that getting footage for the vlog is a little bit challenging. Now, I had hoped to, by now, this video today should have been a little bit of a review of Cambridge and wandering in and out of some of the places in Cambridge, a place we called home for, well, Nicola called home for many a year. I called home for almost 20 years. But again, the weather has been pretty diabolical. Now, I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet. I still want to record that video. I think next week I'm just going to have to bite the bullet, go out in the mist, in the fog, in the meh, and it's not even going to be misty, it's just going to be murky bleh, and hopefully capture some footage and show you around some of the haunts that we used to call local here in Cambridgeshire. Now, Nicola's not here today. She's actually down in, the Gallops are in a town called Newmarket. You've probably heard of Newmarket races. She's actually in Newmarket at the moment with her mum. I'm doing the good son-in-law duty, as always. Cup of tea, Maureen. So she's down there with her mum, going to spend a couple of hours just mooching around the shops. To be honest, it's the last thing I feel like doing. And so I thought I would take the opportunity while here in the van on the Gallops to do a little bit of a 2024 financial review, both what we have spent approximately and also what YouTube makes us. Spoiler alert, blink and you'll miss it. First up though, I smell coffee's almost ready. 2 minutes. Got one of these kind of all-in-one cafetiere type muggy things. Does okay. Maybe it's the quality of the coffee I'm buying, but I've never managed to find... Oh my giddy aunt, that's warm. I've never managed to find a coffee blend that actually tastes nice. But maybe I need to kind of stop spending £3 on a month's worth of supply in coffee and actually spend some money on coffee. Anyway, I'm getting coffee diverted. So let's talk a little bit, first of all, about what we spent in 2024. And look, I've even come prepared. I've got pie charts and everything. Wow. So we actually left a year ago exactly yesterday, as I think I spoke about in a vlog not long after, I think one of the first ones we had made whenever we were back on the road. The day we left, we were given some pretty devastating news about one of our close friends who had sadly passed away. Can't believe it's been a year since that. So obviously we left with a heavy heart. We also had to get a few bits and pieces done with the van, get a few bits and pieces done with the gas. We had a new gas tank fitted. Our plan was to travel very quickly down through France and try to make it into Spain. So I think in January, we were sort of mid-January, the budget that I did last year, I don't know why I did this here, but it ran from the 18th of the month to the 17th of the following month. Maybe it's because we left on the 18th of January, actually thinking about it. Oh, there you go. Whereas this year, our budget, we're doing it from the 1st of the month to the end of the month. So this first month, it was pretty much all Spain, a little bit of France as we were driving down through freezing cold conditions in France as well. Do you remember we actually had ice on the inside of the window in Carbourg? Oh, that was pretty chilly. So much so that we didn't fill up any of our bunts until we got into northern Spain. Actually, pretty chilly this morning as well. And you might wonder why I'm not putting on the heating. Well, two reasons. One, putting on the heating, the audio will be completely terrible, worse than normal. And two, we actually have to take the van back into the gas, folks. And I would think they might need some gas in the tank to do what they need to do. But that's a whole different... Things are mucked up with the van again, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon enough. I'm not going to break, because we're going to do a whole 12-month thing, I'm not going to break each month down into the typical categories that we normally do. But the categories that we have are fuel, transport, groceries, social and experiences, cash out, camping, van repairs, and house. Now, house is what we pay for the various bits and pieces that we have going on back in Ireland, and other bits and pieces like ongoing things like our mobile phone contracts and stuff like that, which obviously are a necessity as we travel as well. So the total, I'll put a little breakdown of each month up here, but I just won't go through it. The total, including the house fund, was 1,700 quid. Now, just to sort of put some context into this here, we would love to keep our average per month below 1,500 quid. I think that is doable, even with the house amount in there as well. But that obviously relies on a lot of probably stationary or not moving on too much, i.e. diesel, certainly not staying in a lot of campsites and not going out a lot. But our kind of wonderful target would be below 1,500 quid. Having said that, if we can keep it below £2,000, then I think for life on the road, that's probably quite good. Now, £2,000 shouldn't be a target. You know, hey, we've got 100 quid left, Nicola, and it's the last day. Let's blow it all on cake. That is a thing, by the way. More so, great if we can keep it below £2,000, and obviously keep it below maybe by a couple of £100 each month. So January, 1,700 quid, and so you can see the breakdown per category. So February and into March. Now, again, this was a lot of Spain and a little bit of Portugal. But if you remember, whenever we were in Portugal, we stayed in Albufeira on the campsite. I think that was whenever we were there. Yes, it would have been the campsite in Albufeira. I was obviously pretty bad. And we actually found out what that was. We thought it was some weird version of COVID. Maybe the Irish/English version. I don't know. Turns out it was... I've completely forgotten. I'll put it up here. But yeah, I was pretty sick. And of course, we probably should have taken me to a doctor and got me some shots or something, or maybe just got me put down. I was out of action for like 3 weeks, and I missed all of that good Portugal. I remember biting in to a pastel de nata at the peak of my illness, and I could have cried because it was so painful. And we actually met up with the guys from Camper Vibe as well, Louise and Emily. Anyway, so in February through to March, bizarrely, exactly the same amount, £1,705. That's a bit bizarre. But yeah, so we're still staying below that £2,000 mark. And that obviously included that 171 quid. A lot of that probably would have been in Albufeira. So then from the 18th of March through to the 17th of April, again, bit of Spain, I think actually quite a lot of Spain, but we had started to kind of move into, well, I think at that point, around this point somewhere, we'd started to think about doing something different and getting out of Spain and maybe heading towards Greece. So I'm not sure whether we at this point had started to head north. We certainly had started to head north, but I'm not sure whether we'd reached France by this point. So this time we had 2,350. So obviously we've now blown our 2,000 and we've almost reached £1,000 more than our real target of 1,500. So that was a pretty big month. Groceries, actually, what you can see here is we can certainly see, I think, that we have gone out of Spain and we're into France, where groceries are a little bit more expensive. No doubt about it. Van life in Spain and Portugal, if you don't want to kind of go really kind of far off, Spain and Portugal is fantastic. Lots of free park-ups, lots of free services, and cheap groceries. And in fact, even if you enjoy a little tipple or two, don't know who we're talking about there, free tapas as well, a lot of places. I think actually whenever we went out in Easter in Alcalá Real, it was like we got fed and watered for like €16 or something, and we were there all day. Oh, God bless you, Spain. Okay, so now April into May. Now this was the first, I think it was the 19th of April, that we had our first van issue when our alternator belt snapped on the Italian autostrada whenever we were actually heading to Brindisi to get the boat to Greece. So all of a sudden our van repair column started to get a little bit of usage. And so April through to May, we had actually spent £2,067. Now 370 of that was actually on van repairs. So if we hadn't have had the van repairs, it actually would have been another £1,700 a month. But of course you can't just say if we hadn't have had, because it did happen. Now thankfully our breakdown insurance, whenever we lose the van, it does cover kind of accommodation. And because we found that fantastic little agro farm camping place outside of Matera, we were able to stay for 5 nights there while we waited for the parts to come in for the van for free, basically. So that was pretty good. But £2,067. But again, sadly, including the van repairs, breaking that £2,000 limit. Okay, this is where our budget started to... May through to June, and again at this point we are in Greece. So for the next couple of months we're in Greece. £2,556. That's a little bit too much. Now, I would caveat that by saying there's a big chunk of that we've taken out some advanced cash, so we've kind of paid a little bit forward. But what we noticed now, maybe not so much in the first sort of few months of Greece, although I'm just looking down here and it was £327. We did spend a lot on campsites in Greece. Now the campsites in Greece are fantastic, and quite often they're only about between sort of 12 and €18 a night, so it doesn't seem a huge amount. But we kept kind of plunking ourselves down on a campsite and then going, ooh, this is quite nice, and spending a lot on campsites. So when we started to look back at our sort of annual budget, we were like, we did spend a bit too many nights at campsites. And of course, our social, Spain and Portugal, you can get away with it. A wee coffee here, a wee beer here, a wee tapas there, and it's not too bad. Greece was actually, I wouldn't say it was expensive whenever you're coming from the UK, but it certainly was probably about 80% of UK costs. So, we were almost getting sucked into a little bit of holiday mode where too many coffees, too many beers out, not too many meals out, but just too many coffees and cakes and things like that. So certainly the campsites and the social side of things, a little bit too much. We try to keep it 80-20. 80% while camping or free hours, 20% at campsites. There are some sort of extenuating circumstances. Maybe Nicola's got a lot of work on and we just want to be comfortable from that perspective. The like of now in the winter time, there's no way we could spend several hours. Nicola could spend several hours working. We'd have to go to a campsite to get electric hookup. But we did kind of overspend a little bit on the campsites in Greece. Now they're between 12 and €18 typically, so it doesn't seem a lot. But if you're doing that, multiple days in a row, which we found we were doing, we'd turn up. They quite often go, meh, pay when you leave. Well, we're only staying 2 nights, pay when you leave. 18 nights later, we're like, can we live here? So yeah, we were spending a little bit too much on campsites. But £2,556. Woohoo! 18th of June through 17th of July. We don't really have got a lot of cash out. That cash should have meant that this month was a lesser month, and as you can see, we still blew our 2,000 limit by quite a lot, actually, quite a lot. So 2,397, and again, if you look there, almost £500 on camping. We were spending too long at campsites. We've said that already, that we just have to sort of cut out on the campsites. We got too much into the holiday mode. Now Greece was stunning. It was absolutely beautiful, but we'd started to see it get quite busy at this point. Up until this point, down around the Peloponnese, you know, it was quite empty. We were still going to a little bit too many campsites, but yeah, now we were really just saying, oh, we'll go for here for 5 days, we'll go for here for 10. In fact, some of them we were like 15 days and things like that. So as nice as it was, a little bit too much spent on campsites. So that's £2,397 for that month. So the 18th of July through the 17th of August. Now looking at my photo library there, we actually left Greece. We obviously did about a month on Kefalonia. Wow, Kefalonia. Get yourself to Kefalonia. It is fantastic. And Corfu, where of course, even though we didn't have as good a time, it did allow us to rescue Tinker, who by the way, is doing fantastic. She's still at the cat rescue centre. She probably will live out her days there now, but apparently she's a very cute, intelligent and loving little kitten. So we give some money over to the cat sanctuary for Christmas, and we'll carry on supporting them going forward. But so we left Greece on the 28th of July. Now, as you may remember, we had some issues with our batteries, which meant we went to Dodgy Bloke, who seemed to muck things up. To give him his dues, I don't think, we'll maybe talk about this later on, I don't think he caused our ongoing issues. I think putting new batteries in highlighted some of our ongoing issues. But of course we had some battery replacements there as well. So all of a sudden, our 18th of July through the 17th of August, oh dear, £3,445. Look at that social budget. I guess if you were to turn around and say social plus camping plus transport for a month spread across 2 Greek islands, it isn't too bad, but it's way, way over what we want to be spending living in a van. And then of course we had that over £600, almost £700 van repair bill as well for the batteries. So I think that was our, oh no, I was going to say that was our biggest month. Not quite, Nigel, not quite. Okay, so 18th of August through the 17th of September. Now this was split up between Slovenia and Italy, and mostly around the lakes Garda and Como. I think maybe it was just Garda at that point, but a lot of time in Slovenia. Now, as I said, I thought last month was a big month for van repairs, but of course we had our clutch explode. And I know at the time a few people commented, how much did it cost? And we didn't say anything at the time. I think we were just too traumatized. But it was the guts of £2,000. Now, that was with money shaved off in quite vast proportions. As I think Nicola said, when they first gave us the bill, she burst into tears. Because in all honesty, we didn't have the money to pay for that. We had the money, but we didn't have easy access to it. Getting some of the discount was very welcome, but still a unforeseen. The batteries, I kind of knew that they needed replaced by the end of the year, and they would have been slightly more expensive because we would have went for a whole lithium system. So putting the batteries in, great, a bit of a pain that we didn't get lithium, but it was a cost that we knew we were going to have to swallow up at some point in 2024 to 2025. €2,000 on a clutch and a flywheel, whatever the hell a flywheel is, that was completely unexpected. So yeah. So that basically brought our monthly total, including van repairs, including the house fund, £4,491. Oh my giddy aunt. If you remember me saying that we were looking to sort of have about a €2,000 a month sort of budget, and all of a sudden, in the last 2 months, we have spent the guts of, maybe a bit more, £8,000. That's not good. Who said van life was cheap? So 18th of September through 17th of October. Now at this point, we had started to make our way towards the UK, and some of these costs are UK costs as well, as we split our time between sort of southern England and getting over to Ireland. So the total for that month was £1,614. So thankfully, not only coming below the £2,000 mark, but actually getting closer to that £1,500 mark as well. We certainly needed it. A lot spent on fuel because we were doing quite a lot of driving up through the Black Forest, up through France and getting across to the UK. 18th of October through 17th of November. Now we are 100% here in the UK, most of it in Ireland, most of it either based at my parents' or driving up and down to Portrush. Now, we did do quite a lot of back and forward to Portrush, and of course while we're in Portrush we're meeting up with friends. It's getting kind of close to Christmas, and so we spent probably a little bit too much on social as well. So that was £1,816, which again, we were kind of hoping, well, whenever we were back in the UK, that we were really going to try to consistently get things under 1,500 quid to kind of claw back some of our sort of spent budget from previous months. Yeah, that just didn't happen. I blame everyone in Portrush, taking us out too much and making us drink beer and eat gorgeous burgers from Kiwis. Yeah, Nigel, you blame them. It's all on me. And that brings us up to the 18th of November, right the way through to the 31st of December. This time we wanted to kind of complete the whole year. Pretty expensive month. Bit of transport in there as we were kind of doing a little bit back and forward with the ferries, booking ferries. A little bit too much spent out and about. And the UK prices are crazy. I could be drinking a lot more coffee in the van from now on. Yeah, UK prices are just ridiculous. In fact, a lot of people we met on the road commented that even people from Australia, they were saying the UK, most expensive country they've been to. And once again, we had a lot of van repairs. Well, actually, this was van servicing and bits and pieces getting it ready for the MOT. And that was 2,680. So once again, absolutely, completely and utterly ignoring our £2,000 limit. Might as well finish the year on a high, I guess. That brings us to our annual total. Now, this includes all of our travel fund, all of the stuff to keep the bits and pieces running back in Ireland and our ongoing contracts, and obviously those nasty van repairs. In total, for the year, we spent £26,983. We were hoping to keep that somewhere between £22,000 and £24,000. Again, £2,000 a month total or maximum. 26,983 is a little bit much. Having said that, we had over £4,000 worth of van repairs in there. Our social and experiences, £5,000, which I guess if you average that out over the course of 12 months, it's just over 400 quid a month. Now, if we were living back in Portrush, I think we would spend more. Now, remember, experiences also included going into museums and historic sites, especially whenever we were in Greece. So actually 400 quid a month on average from that perspective, I guess is not too bad. You can look at the other sort of category breakdowns as well in terms of what we spent most on. But it does look like that our social and experiences this year even outgunned our groceries. We were spending around about 400 quid a month as well on groceries. Now, being down in Spain and Portugal, that certainly keeps that lower. Being back here in the UK keeps that lower. But actually, groceries in places like Greece and Slovenia and France, they're probably on a par, if not a little bit more expensive even than the UK. I guess it is what it is. But the total, so the total 26,983, and that's an average of £2,248 a month for 12 months, pretty much, in fact 12 months on the road, living in a camper van in Europe. And I'm not quite sure why he thinks he can drive in there, because I left the gap about that much. Am I going to have to get van angry? Nope. My New Year's resolution? Come on, Nigel, lots of zen. Without a shadow of a doubt, you can do van life in Europe, even in the UK, much, much cheaper than that. I think there are a couple of things that we have sort of said to ourselves that we're going to do this year. Number one, much less going out. Absolutely. For a number of reasons. One, I'm really, whenever we both came back from the Nordics, we were in the Nordics and the Baltics, we were in the best shape of our lives, 100%. Hiking, running, obviously the prices in the Nordics meant that we weren't going out. I mean, I think we went out twice in the whole time we were in Norway and Sweden and Finland. That hasn't been the case this year, and I'm injured at the moment, so no running for me. But we just haven't been doing a lot of hiking and running, and on the downside, eating too much rubbish, and for me especially, drinking far too much beer, especially the last couple of months with the whole Christmas shenanigans going on. So one of the things that we are really going to cut down on is going out. And we're going to try to run the whole 5 and 2. So 100%, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. There is no going out, no eating out, no coffees out, no nothing. Then if we want to have that there, it'll be the weekend only. But hopefully we'll be in picturesque enough locations that actually we can make ourselves a coffee, enjoy the view, and have that for much, much cheaper. So number one, much less going out. I'm just laughing to myself thinking, future me is looking back in December going, oh, Nigel. So the other thing we're going to try to do much less of is much less reliance on campsites. Now, as I said, there are going to be some caveats to that. Whenever Nicola has maybe a couple of days work to do, we probably will have to check ourselves into a campsite. Even if we had enough solar power, working for a couple of days, it's good to have a bit of sort of comfort in a campsite. But outside of that, we're really going to try to cut down on campsites. Maybe try to cut it down to say, well, if we need to go to a campsite, obviously sometimes the campsites throw in things like laundry and things like that. Limit it to sort of 2 nights max, just so we can go in, get the batteries kind of charged up, get the laundry done, get ourselves kind of showered and things like that. But really cutting down on campsites. And then doing a lot more free stuff. Now, we'll talk about this in an upcoming video, our sort of plans for 2025. A little bit of a spoiler, a little bit of a heads up. As nice as Greece was from a holiday vibe point of view, I still think we enjoyed, despite the costs involved, I still think we enjoyed Norway more. And that was simply because we were hiking more, we were walking more, we were watching wildlife more, which was all pretty much free of charge. And that's what we really want to get back into this year. Doing a lot more free stuff, doing a lot more hiking, doing a lot more running, doing a lot more watching wildlife, stuff that actually doesn't involve splitting with any cash. So less social and experiences, or at least paid for experiences, less reliance on campsites, and doing a lot more free stuff. I think it's a bit naive to say that we could every month come in around the 1,500 mark, especially if we're including that sort of, and our home costs are probably now about £350 a month this year. So I think if we could keep our travelling costs to 1,500 quid a month, I think that would be a really good year. So keep our totals under £2,000. Now, obviously, there are going to be a few bits and pieces that bite us in the ass along the way, not least that we know we have a couple of things needing done with the van once more, including more bits and pieces done with the gas. So in the first couple of months, we might see quite a big hit with some van repairs and things like that. But hopefully, we can keep things under that £2,000 mark per month. Now, as much as we had hoped to keep the budget this past year, 2024, under a certain limit, and we kind of blew that, I still think it would have been more expensive to live at home. That's excluding a mortgage. We haven't had a mortgage in, well, we don't have a house now, so shh, don't tell Nicola. So even without a mortgage, I think living in Portrush, for example, I think our monthly budget would still have been around £2,000 a month, just with bills. You do probably socialise a little bit more with your friends. So I still think that we're probably on a level to what we'd be spending if we were living in Portrush. Now, obviously, there's probably people out there saying, well, I could live in Portrush if I didn't have a mortgage for 900 quid a month because, you know, we loved eating rice and doing lots of free stuff. And that's great. Happy days. I would love to, you know, get our budget down to sort of the, as I say, below the 1,500 quid mark. Having it on what we think is probably on, say, 400 quid a month on social and experience, which, as I say, includes going out seeing things, we would have spent more than that probably back home in Portrush. So we have probably on a par what we would have spent, but we've also seen so much. You know, we've seen, I didn't keep a budget in the first year we were doing it stupidly, but we have seen some incredible sights and places and met some wonderful people as well. We're not kind of too upset that what we've spent. It's just focused us a little bit more to be a lot more careful the stupid things that we've been spending money on. Because as I say, I love coffee. I really love a coffee. Yeah, I love a beer as well, but I really love a coffee. But doing it 3 or 4 times a week in Greece, whenever they were, you know, a Freddo cappuccino might have been €350. And if I'm doing that 3 or 4 times a week, you know, you're €15 or so a week just on coffee. Whereas, you know, So we're looking forward to the challenge that this year is going to bring in terms of being a little bit more sensible with money, trying to kind of cut out a lot of things while also getting back to what really, really floats our boat. And that's nature, wildlife, hiking, and the mountains. Well, I have rambled on way too much on this vlog, and real apologies that it just has been a talking head. Hopefully you find that somewhat interesting in terms of costs. I'd love to hear from other people who are doing van life full time, whether they are, way below that. Obviously, some people want to keep that to themselves. That's completely fine. Are you way below that? Are you way above it? Are you living in a home? And what are you spending a month? Maybe, if you've got like 4 kids and stuff and mortgages and stuff, then maybe it's a little bit different. But maybe there's a couple out there who are by themselves, living in a home, in Ireland or in England or somewhere else. What's your average per month? It'd be quite interesting to, we did a little bit of a survey amongst some of our friends, and we were quite surprised as to what some people were actually spending, which again comes down to the whole cost of living thing. But yeah, hopefully you find that useful. Again, apologies, it's just been a talking head, i.e. this head here. We'll get Nicola back into the vlog at some point. What we might end up doing is we might end up doing a looking back at 2024 and a plans for 2025 in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully as well, I'll get a vlog out next week or the week after looking at or going around Cambridge. Hopefully we get some better weather than this 50 shades of murk. That's coffee, and I think that cost me about 2p, so we're on a winner already. Although we are going out tonight with Nicola's brother and his wife. Right guys, well once again, thanks a lot for following along, and until next time, probably moseying around the cobbled streets of Cambridge. Take care. Bye bye.